Hi there, knife people, hello lady and gentlemen. Today is an interesting day. My channel hit over 1 million views. So, to celebrate, I went and tested this Victorinox Venture. I keep forgetting, they make such a forgettable name, Venture. And I just got back from testing this knife in the dark. And to demonstrate how it cuts, I'm going to use this knife catalog. By the way, going forward on my channel, this knife will henceforth known as the Imler method. You'll see why soon enough. This knife is still a decent cutter. As you can see, it still cuts, even after I put it through all kinds of paces. So let's go back in time and see the test in reverse order. The very last test I did is feather sticking this little piece of oak wood. Oak is not the best material for feather sticking, nor is this full flat grind on the knife, but it's doing a decent job considering. And this is a piece of a branch that this feather sticking piece came off of. It is about 2.5 inches in diameter and came off of a branch you see behind there laying on the ground. And if batoning hardwood with a small knife terrifies you, the worst is yet to come, so be advised. I am still being paranoid about this edge even after I put this knife through the paces in the earlier tests, and that is because there's at least 2 videos showing damage to the blade after batoning and chopping. But the scariest video was put up by Mr. Felix Imler, who's Victorinox man himself, saying that we should not be abusing this knife, and that scared the bazooka out of me. I mean, Felix participated in the design of this knife, and if he doesn't have the confidence... Alright, what you will see next, you should never do to a knife unless you're in absolutely dire situation. Oh, and apologize in advance about some of the video quality. That's what happens when you do night shooting impromptu. You know, we're going back in time, so what you just saw in the previous segment came after what you're seeing now. And the club weighs about 2 pounds. This is that same 2.5 inch branch that you already saw laying on the ground, and I am attempting to use this knife to chop off a good sized piece, like you would in a survival situation if that was the only tool you have. So my phone was propped against another piece of wood and it's about to fall down, and after that the focus will be changed. Boom. Just like that. And now for a while this video will be out of focus and the phone will fall down again. But I wanted to continue this as one continuous shot because it's very important that you understand the actual capability of this knife. To reduce the length of your blurry screen suffering, I sped up this video 1.75 times. But to pass the time, why don't you watch clips from very respectable YouTubers that I mentioned earlier?
Really perform well. The catastrophic issue that I have now seen, not only on my model, but I watched another YouTube video, and they had an even worse damage going through wood when they baton, is I have discovered that I have probably about the thickness of my thumb edge wave that has occurred.
This was Gideon's Tactical, and the video he's referring to is by Forza Knife, which is a smaller channel with great content.
However, an accident has occurred which makes me doubt that this knife can really be considered suitable for the practice of bushcraft. While I had carried out my rather moderate test of the knife on kindling, I went out in the evening to film some missing sequences, in particular on wood. I made a new small batoning on a small log. Then I took a bigger log and I delimbed it with a series of cuts on the fly. And by analyzing my images, this is where the degradation of the edge of the blade must have occurred, which I unfortunately did not have filmed. I didn't notice it at the time before doing this last batoning on a bigger section of wood because I was concentrating on the focusing and the framing to film.
Which is clearly not what I was concentrating on. Sorry about the focus again, but look at the result. This knife worked great. In case you don't know, Felix Imler is a Swiss gentleman who's been incredible YouTuber describing every possible Victorinox Swiss Army knife. And When the time came to design this knife, he was consulted by Victorinox and contributed to some of the design features. But here, what he has to say about this knife.
I recommend don't use very hard wood sorts like beech or oak. Okay, oak is anyway a bad idea. I would recommend to use softer wood like maple, hazel or birch or stuff like this.
Felix, this is America. Here we don't drink our coffee like this, and we definitely don't baby our knives. This is what I call a tree of doom. This is a dead oak near from my house, and I test a lot of knives. There's 11 blade tips stuck somewhere in this wood. If you watch my playlist called Knife Torture Tests, you will see what I'm talking about. My standard test is 25 strikes, and I pry severely left and right to test the strength of the blade's tip. I don't invite anybody to repeat this test. I do it so you don't have to. This oak has been dead for about 6 to 10 years, and it became softer on the outside with a very hard core inside. And this tree was not an issue for Victorinox Venture. But let's hear what else Felix has to say.
It's a cutting and slicing devil. So we have 0.4 millimeters behind the cutting edge. And this one is hardened on 59 Rockwell. Sometimes I can't believe what I see on the different social media platforms. So one guy used a 1 kilogram hammer as baton. Oh God. Well, I forget it. Yes, you can baton with this knife, but as soon you have side branches, you have to be careful with this knife. This knife has a fine geometry.
Felix, let me replay this just for you. I don't know what happened with the knives in the other two videos, but this example has a perfect heat treat. It's a strong knife. This knife indeed has a fine geometry, and it is indeed an amazing cutter. But to see how I arrived to this conclusion, we have to go back in time a couple more days. I want to do a little bit of an edge retention test here. So for that purpose, I brought the standard seesaw rope and seesaw fiber, which is what this YouTuber from Australia is using to test. Cedric and Ada Gear is the YouTuber's name. Great guy. So I'm gonna put it this way: if I don't get to where it stops cutting paper in 100 cuts, I will stop the test. Well, this plan did not work out. I just could not stop cutting until my wrist was about to fall off. And while my 2 days old self cutting the rope, I would like to talk a little bit about the knife itself. Its 4-inch blade is made out of 14C28N steel. The construction is called full tang, which means that from the tip to the very back of the handle, there's one solid piece of steel, overmolded with plastic. This steel, 14C28N, was designed specifically for this type of applications. It has very high edge retention as well as toughness, meaning it's designed to cut for a long time without resharpening, and it will not break on most impacts. Come close to the camera. This cuts extremely well. This is like nice. It just gets right through it. And I did not feel any difference in how it slices between first and last cuts, and I did 100 total, so I'm using the same area of the knife to slice paper. Nothing. Okay. And because I observed no degradation in the edge whatsoever, I decided to continue the test and take another 100 cuts. The reason I chose seesaw rope as a cutting media is because Cedric and Ada channel, that's what they use in Australia, and his tests are famous and became kind of a standard for cutting edge retention testing. Later that day, when I got home, I tested the hardness of this blade using a hardness file test kit. This is not the most accurate way to determine Rockwell hardness, but it gets you into a ballpark. And after testing, I can say with a certain degree of confidence that the hardness of this blade exceeds the advertised 59 on the Rockwell scale. I would place it between 60 and 62. 200 cuts, still cutting. Alright, I did not expect it'll go this way, but if I had to cut rope all day long, this would be the knife. What I did not like about this knife was the sheath system. I think it's borderline ridiculous, and even Felix Imler pointed out that one has to improve it and add to it in order to, for it to function in the outdoors environment. That's 50, so 250 now. There's no discernible difference, at least for my hand. Unbelievable. The knife's geometry, or the blade's geometry, defines the quality of the knife more than the steel that was used. And several much respected YouTubers in the knife universe point that out in several important videos. Among them, there is Dr. Larry Thomas, the creator of MagnaCut Steel, as well as David C. Anderson, who is a Knife Center YouTuber. 320 cuts. My arm is about to fall off. I'm not sitting at my bench like some people on the internet. You know who you are. Just kidding. I love the work you do, man, with the seesaw rope. Okay, I give up. I'm moving to Switzerland. Felix, do you have a place to stay for me, huh? Okay. No joke, no gimmick, no BS, guys. I have not seen anything like it. I haven't. I bought it retail. It wasn't sent to me by anybody. I'm not affiliated with anybody, especially with the foreign manufacturers. Just went to Knife Center and got that from them. It's a nice red. It's not exactly Victorinox pocket knife red. It's more like a Marine Corps red, if you know what I mean. Like, it has a little bit of that blood undertone, blood red. That's what it is. Okay, this knife deserves a better sheath. The sheath is not a very good sheath. Let's just call it like that. And it doesn't retain your knife at all. So you almost need a red handle. If you're gonna buy this knife, don't buy it in green or black because you're gonna lose it at some point. The good thing about this sheath, one good thing that I could find was the fact that it's ambidextrous. I can insert it this way, or I can flip the knife and insert it that way for all it's worth. And then they have this, what they did, they repurposed a rubber gasket here to retain enough. So you just slide it over. It's like a little piece of rubber O-ring or gasket that goes over with a little pull tab. And that does a better job. So if you are going to wear this or put it in your pack, I would not even, this sheath is so weak, I wouldn't even carry it in the pack, inside your pack, without putting this O-ring on, because that will actually retain the knife to some extent. These following words of wisdom you have to hear from the horse's mouth. And speaking of the devil, Victorinox, what's it called? The new Victorinox blade, the Venture, the Venture, right? And the reason is because I think it's a great design. Yeah. But I think they missed something on the steel, because I saw two people bending, getting a wave in a blade, and so I want to test it for myself.
Steel doesn't matter if it's done right. If it's heat treated well and the geometry is good. Who cares? Is it going to work? Yes. Steel is far secondary to what has been done with it. And it's kind of like it's freeing in a way.